Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah, you're right. I speak with this. Good evening and welcome to House Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Lauren Pitts. The link between childhood experiences and domestic violence is an issue we see in the Adverse Childhood Experience Study, ACES, which is an assessment tool used to assess the amount of neglect, trauma, or other indicators of a difficult childhood. Research has found that the higher the score, the more likely an individual is to experience physical, emotional, and social health problems in adulthood. As the community examines the intersection between domestic violence and childhood experiences, the ACES test is an important tool to understand the dynamics of abuse. Tonight, my guest co-host Regina Williams and I welcome you to the continuation of House Talk's Fall 2019 Domestic Violence Intervention Series. We need to talk about the impact of domestic violence on our children within our homes and communities, and we understand it really is a difficult conversation to engage in. This is exactly what House Talk is all about, having the hard conversations and providing solution-focused strategies to educate, empower, and liberate individuals for the purpose of strengthening our relationships, home, and communities. Tonight, we're doing just that. We are initiating this difficult discussion on ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and children exposed to domestic violence. We also want to hear from you during the show, so please call us live with your comments or questions at 515-605-9744. Again, that's 515-605-9744. Additionally, if you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please call your local authorities or the domestic violence hotline at 800-799-7233. Again, that's 800-799-7233. Regina?
Dr. Pitts, how are you?
Can I just be transparent for a minute? I'm extremely stressed. I'm extremely tight. It's just a lot. It's a lot going on. And, you know, I pride myself on doing an extraordinary job of balancing things. But at the end of the day, we only have control of ourselves. And I'm just being transparent. Like, I'm in a state of distress right now. I'm in a state of distress, and I'm ready to scream. I'm so aggravated. But it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And the show must go on, and we're going to press on because this is such an important topic. And there's just so much that we need to cover tonight. So we're going to press our way. And I'm going to make it happen because that's what we have to do despite the exorbitant amount of toxicity that I'm forced to deal with, just in the couple of hours leading up to the show and everything that's literally going on around me in the studio right now. But it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. This too shall pass. How are you, my dear?
I'm all right. I think I've overcome some of these technical difficulties, so I'm feeling a little ching tonight. But okay. I just want to say we'll definitely have to touch base after the show, or if it's something, so that we got to make sure we take care of each other. You already know how I feel about that.
I'm not sure if it's your headset or your microphone, but you're breaking up. Yeah, I got you on speaker.
As I was just bragging about my overcoming of the technological situations, and yeah, we're gonna press on.
Yeah,
but
let's go.
So we were talking. That's just how it goes. Part of the core, right?
Yeah.
But this is information that must get out there. So we was just talking about the Adverse Childhood Experience Study, which is an assessment tool used to assess the amount of neglect, trauma, and other indicators of difficult childhood. Research has found that the higher the score, the more likely an individual is to experience physical, emotional, and social health problems in adulthood. As the community examines the intersection between domestic violence and childhood experiences, the ACES test is an important tool to use to understand the dynamics of abuse. Research also indicates that women who have experienced 5 or more of the ACEs are 3 times more likely than women who have experienced 0 ACEs. They out there?
Yeah, wow.
There's folk out there with 0? Okay.
Look, where? Not around these parts.
I'm just saying. They are 3 times more likely than women who have experienced 0 ACEs to be victims of domestic violence as an adult.
Yeah.
People who have experienced 4 ACEs or more are 8 times more likely than those with no ACEs to be raped later in life.
Wow.
A clear connection has been made between domestic violence and adverse childhood experiences. None is more critical than those who experience domestic violence as children, such as watching a parent abuse an intimate partner.
Wow.
So with that being said, let's examine some childhood risk and protective factors.
Yeah, I know you've done a lot of research, on the risk and what have you. I'm gonna let you go ahead and bang that up first, and then we can sort of explore together the protective factors, because I believe there's a lot more protective factors than people realize, and it's sometimes people think that it takes this great thing to happen, like the heavens and the earth have to move in order for us to be able to get some protective measures in place. But sometimes it's just a minor adjustment. So let's talk about the risk factors first. What are we seeing? Your work over the years in behavioral mental health, and my work over the years in behavioral mental health, and look, and our personal and professional lives, just being women and girls and mothers, right? Family members and friends and colleagues. There's so many risk factors that could potentially put our children in harm's way and make them at greater risk for this exposure. So, you want to go, or how are we going to play this tonight?
Well, I'll just start out with a risk factor is definitely being exposed to seeing these things. Seeing how people interact with each other in a negative manner that's right there. It's in their face.
Yeah.
So we definitely have that. You also have, folks, who live in poverty situations, where there's a lot of stress in the house, where there is a lack of communication, open communication. And maybe, with regard to social and emotional education, there when there's a lack of that. So those are risk factors for children, because a lot of times people feel as though they don't understand that kids are watching and kids are absorbing, and kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. And a lot of times they think things that are over their heads is really in their face and in their heart. Right. So people need to really be careful about that. But, you have to, when you have, I don't want to say single parent households. I will say single person households where you don't have a lot of support systems. Right. Those are risk factors. Yeah. And when mental health issues are risk factors. So I'll stop right there because I know we could delve into each one of those, but I'm sure you have some others that you want to mention.
Yeah, I just want to. You said the mental health piece. That was definitely one that I was going to put out there, but I also want to mention the drugs and alcohol. This particularly, we see it being a societal issue across the nation and really around the world, but when you look at the interconnection between poverty and substance use and abuse, it certainly elevates the risk and the likelihood. Unemployment, socioeconomic status, certainly poverty isn't necessarily going to mean that there's going to be domestic violence, but it does increase the possibility because of the level of stress that financial lack brings upon, parents and caregivers. The drugs and the alcohol bring so many other issues at play because, the drugs and the alcohol deplete the limited resources, and it alters one's state of mind and interferes with the ability for people to think rationally and to make rational decisions, not only in their best interest, but in the best interest of their children. I think that children are at greater risk when there is a multi-generational or intergenerational pattern of abuse, neglect, and maltreatment. And people don't realize that, at least it was one of our guests that said on the show last week that, she was a victim of domestic violence, but her mom was too, right? So then when you take into consideration how that generationally impacts children and what that looks like, it's setting them up, it's predisposing them to experience domestic violence beyond just witnessing it. It's setting them up to become victims themselves. Foster care placement. I was in a staff meeting today, and I tell you, this work breaks my heart and it brings tears to my eyes, but I have to do it. I have to do it. It's what God's called me to do. It's what He's purposed me to do. But I tell you, it rips your heart out because some of these foster homes are putting these kids at greater risk because there's, the reality of it is we know from our work that there are people that are in the foster care business, air quotes, just for the money. And it subjects these kids to DV and increases the likelihood for additional maltreatment, abuse, and neglect.
And not only that, even those foster care families who do have the best intentions are also sometimes not emotionally equipped to deal with the traumas that these children come with, and therefore likely, really, add to the trauma more so than help the situation. Yeah.
I'm going to add two more, and then we can certainly start to explore the protective factors. Okay. Community violence. That lack of that lack of the safety and the security foundation that is typically provided or supposed to be provided by the family system increases the risk that children are going to be subjected to domestic violence because we look for love in all the wrong places. They're roaming here, there, and everywhere trying to find safety and security because it's lacking at home, and it makes them or puts them at greater risk to bear witness to domestic violence and to be victims of domestic violence. And then the other one that I just wanted to touch on is being in homes where, there's poor anger management. I cannot stand it when folks, I got anger issues. Okay, well, what are you doing about them? You know what I mean? Well, what you doing about them? It's like people say that like it's a badge of honor, and it's, for me, clinically, it makes you want to scream because we know, right, that it opens the door for so many other issues to come into play when people just when people don't do what they need to be able to control themselves and to have that self-discipline and that self-control, and that lack of self-discipline, that lack of self-control puts children at greater risk because you're more likely to have a short fuse and to fly off the handle and to go hands-on. So, you know, there's just so many, as you said, this list could go on and on and on, and there's so many things that that people could do to put protective factors in place. So let's make our listeners aware of those. You know, what can they do about all of these risk factors? And I want to reiterate again before we start sort of peeling back the layers on the protective factors that sometimes it's a minor adjustment. Sometimes people just have to be willing to do something better and different. If what you're doing is not working, then certainly you want to try something different and be humble enough. Let's use humility as a protective factor, right? Be humble enough to acknowledge that you need help. Needing help doesn't mean that you're a bad parent. It means that you're a parent that doesn't have all the answers. It means that you're a caregiver that doesn't have all the answers. And it's okay to acknowledge, it's better to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers and that you need help sort of bringing resolve to some of these things so that your children are not at such great risk to be exposed to domestic violence.
Right, you're absolutely right. And like you said, you know, some minor adjustments.
Yeah.
One of the main protective factors that you could use to shield and protect kids is loving, supportive parents.
Yep.
Being supportive.
Yeah.
You know, read to your kids. Talk with your kids. Have them around other positive influences. So if they're, you know, if you are, you know, being in a single household doesn't mean that you're single parenting. You can, you know, you glean from your resources, your family, your friends, mentors, community members, you know, connectedness. You know, teach them and also learn for yourself good communication skills. You know, we can't be offended by everything that, you know, the child says.
Right.
We can't be offended by feeling words.
Yep.
When someone is hurt about something, no, you can't be hurt. Yes, you can be hurt, but let's talk about that.
Right.
You know, and those are simple things that you can do. You have to also be aware of child development, brain development, so that you're not placing unrealistic expectations on a child, and that you're also doing the best that you can to nurture a child, and that's in home and in school, because, you know, and in the community, because a lot of times, you know, kids are given too much credit in that area, but not enough credit. You know what I mean? But not enough credit in other areas.
I agree.
So I think sometimes we're over generalizing their capabilities with regard to those types of things, and we're not modeling the appropriate behavior that they need to see to be able to thrive and be successful. Those are, you know, and then there's the other protective factors as far as, you know, financial stability, educational supports, the community. Take care of yourself.
How about that? That good old self-care.
Take care of your children. Yeah, self-care.
Yeah.
Self-care.
Get help.
And like you said, don't be afraid to get help.
Yeah. We have, you know, so many organizations out there that, you know, people are so quick to make excuses, and I get it. You know what I mean? I understand that, and my clinical director said it to us today, that, you know, dysfunction is only dysfunction to those of us that are on the outside looking in. For those individuals that are living that life condition each day, that's how they function. It's not dysfunction to them. This is how they function. This is what they do. This is how they feel. Now, what we recognize looking from the outside in with a fresh, through a clean set of lenses, is that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to do some things differently. What I say to my clients, and I'm saying this to our global listening audience, is, because there's such a stigma when it comes to counseling and therapy. And I want to challenge our global listening audience to put down that stigma, because all counseling and therapy really is helping people to recognize that they truly are the masters of their own lives. What happens when you have all of these issues that blur your vision? It sort of clouds your perspective, and it puts you in this place and space of hopelessness and helplessness. And my integrative approach to therapy is helping my clients to recognize that they have the answers. They really, really do. I provoke their thoughts. I challenge them cognitively. I provide the reframe and give them a different perspective of the presenting problems that are plaguing their lives. And I provoke their thoughts. I ask them, we have what we call a miracle question clinically, where I say, if I could give you a magic wand and you could wave it and change the circumstances, how would you know that things were different? What would it look like to you? And what that does, Regina, is it provokes their thoughts to realize, wait a minute, I had the answer all along. If I'm giving you this imaginary magic wand and you can wave it and give me the answers to what your life would look like if you wave that magic wand, then guess what? You have the answers. So now we have hope. Now we have something from which we can build upon. And then I take it to the next step and say, okay, now this is what we know it would look like. What steps can we collectively and collaboratively put in place to help you reach that result? Now we start building. Now we start implementing change. Now we have that positive change discussion. And I don't think that enough people realize that a major, major, major protective factor for them, Regina, is being able to say, I need help. What I'm doing is not working. Do you have any other suggestions? Because this is the real deal. People want to be so guarded. They don't want people all up in their business. Well, guess what? Let your kid go to school and start tearing up. It's going to be everybody's business, because nowadays, the days of, putting them up and us locking and loading and the regular old fist fight, those days are over. Kids are stabbing and shooting and killing now, and parents are ending up in court behind their kid that blacked out and zapped out, enraged. So we have. Go ahead.
I want to say you're right, because I did see where a study that showed that women receiving victim-centered services, right, report less abuse from former intimate partners, less depression, decreased feelings of distress, and overall improvements in self-esteem, safety, and well-being, which then turns into protective factors. These are all outcomes that help to ensure safe, stable, nurturing relationships environments for their children. So absolutely, effective treatment helps. It
really, really does. It's like, so here's the thing. Even before I became a therapist, I was very, very big on therapy. And I've shared on a number of different episodes that I was a teenager when I had said to my mom that I really thought that I needed help. And she said to me, you're determined to be the first woman in this family who's crazy. And I said, no, I'm determined to be the first woman in this family who's not crazy. Right? And that wasn't, you know what I mean? And it wasn't rose sheets. And certainly she knew that I didn't mean that literally, because what I really was saying is, I'm seeing all of these problems that exist throughout our family system not being dealt with. People are internalizing way too much. And it's coming out in these explosive, unhealthy ways: the promiscuity, the drugs, the alcohol, the rage, the physical and verbal aggression. It's coming out in all of these self-sabotaging and destructive ways. And my brain, even as a child, even as an adolescent, said, I need help processing all of this adult content, because that's what it was. I was being faced with an exorbitant amount of adult content that I didn't have the maturity, the wisdom. I wasn't at that developmental stage where I could make sense of all of this adult content that was sitting in my lap. So I started seeing a therapist at 18 years of age, and it made all the difference in the world. You know, my journey was long and it was painful and all of that, but I recognized that having that objective, that neutral party, that, look, Regina, that was bound by confidentiality and couldn't tell my business to nobody, that having that safe place and space where I could be vulnerable and transparent and fully disclose everything that was consuming me and eating me up from the inside out, it helped. Now, certainly I still had a very lengthy part of my life where I was in an abusive relationship, but I will tell you, making the decision to seek counsel, in part, in addition to prayer and like, Lord, please help me and give me the strength to do what I need to do, seeking counsel and having a therapist helped me to have the strength that I needed to get out. It built me up, because abuse tears you down by design, right? It's meant to destroy you. It's meant to shatter you to the core of your soul. And that therapeutic relationship was an integral part of me having the strength to reach out and to connect to additional services that I needed to help me to do what I needed to do for me and my son. So I want people to make sure that, you know, don't discount asking for help. I suffice it to say, it's one of the largest protective factors.
And I would like to go a step further and say family therapy. It's also good, because we're talking about having effective communication skills and things of nature, but we have to also, you know, sometimes that's a skill that we have to learn, and sometimes going to therapy helps us with those skills, helps us to be able to effectively listen, you know, and not be judgmental, and hear what is being said, you know. So that is, you know, I think that I just wanted to throw that part in. And there's individual therapy, but definitely some cognitive behavioral therapy for the family could definitely be beneficial.
And I'll piggyback on that, Regina, and share this one, you know, for the listening audience who may be new to the show tonight that don't know, I am a couple, marriage, and family therapist. So when you hear me make reference to family systems and systemic thinking and things like that, what I'm saying is exactly what you said, that the entire family, everybody that's in what we call the ecosystem, that's the family members, the extended family members, the friends, the coworkers, anything and everybody that has the ability to affect the experience, if you will, of the child and everybody connected to that child is an integral part. And certainly everybody's not in a position to be in a family therapy session. But one of the things that I do when I'm holding family sessions, in the very beginning, after I do my intake, I do what's called a genogram. And a genogram is a clinical family tree of sorts. And what it does is it illuminates and illustrates for family members the generational patterns of behavior and emotion. One of the other things that I do is I explore generationally and intergenerationally patterns of parenting, emotional responses that family members have to each other. I explore emotional cutoff. I explore the discord. I explore all of the different relationship dynamics. And what I found, Regina, is people don't even realize. It's like they say, oh, such and such pissed me off, and every time you turn around, I can't stand her. She get on my nerves. but they don't realize that that's a trigger for them. And guess what? On the surface, we're going to label it a trigger, but there's always a root to that, right? And oftentimes that root problem is because of trauma. It's because of abuse, neglect, maltreatment, and so many other things that didn't just happen in that relationship dynamic, but when you really peel back the layers in the family, you'll find, Regina, that that's been there for generations. And nobody's breaking the cycle. Guess what? Because nobody is even consciously aware that it is a cycle. It's like they sort of skirt over it. Oh, well, such and such got high, and such got high, and such was an alcoholic, and such was a pedophile, and such was, had 7 kids by 13 different men, and all these different things, right? But what impact is that having? What impact is that having on the individual and on the family system? And what impact is it having on these children from generation to generation to generation? What impact is it having on a child who is a part of a family system where they have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 siblings and everybody has a different dad or everybody has a different mom? And oh, by the way, some of those relationships are abusive. People don't think about those things. Oh, that I ain't got nothing to do with that. Okay, but you do. Because you might not be, you got one kid by the dude or you got one kid by the female, but you have all of these other sibling relationships. And oh, by the way, he or she is not beating you, but they may be beating the parent of the child's sibling. And oh, by the way, they can't hang out with their brother or sister because every time they go over there, a fight ensues and stuff gets broke and the kid comes home scared to, you know what I mean? People don't realize. People don't realize. And family therapy can bring to light those issues and put solution-focused strategies in place to help individuals and families manage that emotional distress, manage how they're triggering each other, and put additional protective factors in place that they might not even be aware of. I don't think that many parents over here, I know it's a limited knowledge, but there are resources available. There's parent aids. Parents don't even realize, parents are struggling, barely trying to make it. They don't even know that there's agencies out there that will provide parent aids for them for free to help them to manage all of this distress and this chaos and this confusion and this heartache and this pain and this struggle and this violation that is deteriorating the very fiber, not only of themselves, but of their children too. And it's creating all of these problems. So, it's a lot. And abuse can have a variety of effects on the victim. Children in the home and on the community and in the community. Long-term effects of abuse on the victim differ from person to person, from one person to another, and been there, done that. Sometimes it includes flashbacks and panic attacks and anxiety, trouble sleeping, broken bones, head trauma, low self-esteem, eating disorders, depression, suicidal thoughts, chronic pain. But a lot, right? And if we experience that as adults, and we know that our babies, our little people in our households are sponges. If we're having those type of internal effects and external effects, what is it doing to the children? If you or someone you know are experiencing domestic violence, please call your local authorities or the domestic violence hotline at 800-799-7233 for help. We know many of you, our listeners, are intimately acquainted with these effects, and we want you to join the discussion. So call us now with your questions or comments at 515-605-9744. Again, that's 515-605-9744. Children who are exposed to domestic violence also respond in different ways, and many show symptoms that vary by age. Infants, for example, may be easily irritated, difficult to soothe, and exhibit continuous fussiness or crying. Toddlers may use profanity, have frequent nightmares, show meanness towards others, or seem to not know how to play and engage harmoniously with their peers. Some children may bully other children, earn low grades, be unable to complete homework or other tasks, show an inability to follow directions, or even show regressive behavior such as thumb sucking or bedwetting. Teens who witness or experience violence in the home may show aggressive or violent behavior towards others. That was me. Develop depression or anxiety, isolate or engage in self-destructive behavior. That was me. They may also engage in obsessive compulsive behaviors or appear to be overachieving. That was me. And perfectionism. That was me. So how do we help children who are or who have been exposed to domestic violence? I want to start by saying I truly believe that early intervention is one of the best ways to counteract the effects of witnessing abuse. The ways to help children who have witnessed domestic abuse, they include arranging for school-age children to receive counseling from professionals at their school. We have what we call wraparound services. And so oftentimes, school counselors, they'll know that something is off about the child's behavior, but there has to be a discussion. There has to be the willingness to put the embarrassment, the shame, the humiliation aside and have those transparent discussions for the sake of these children. We have to be willing to intervene and do what we need to do to protect these children. We touched on experimenting with various types of counseling. I'm real big on play therapy. My entire caseload, Regina, right now is little people. Yeah, right? Yeah, my youngest client is 6 and my oldest client is 14. And there's different types of play therapy that we can use based on the age of the child, right? But there's so many things that can be put in place. Peer support groups, anger management classes, look, for the kid and the parents, and safety programs to teach kids how to extract themselves from dangerous situations. You touched on, the love and the support of adults and families. So I'm gonna give it back to you on that, and hopefully you can expound on that a little bit further because it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, you have to do. I'm sorry, because I was kind of stuck on like nurse visiting programs in home. Mm-hmm. Like all kinds of in-home preventative services are also used for. Protective factors in helping children who've been exposed to domestic violence. And especially the support groups. Yeah. I definitely think that, we talked a little bit last week about those LINK programs that are school-based programs. Yeah, yeah. They're offering them now, I know that in New Jersey, and New Jersey's following a model from out west. So I'm pretty sure there's other schools in other states that all follow those LINK models with mental health, medical health, dental, vision, all those health services that are provided. And this is from pre-K through high school, so children are easily can access assistance that way. But as far, in the home with the children, let me see. I'm really kind of stuck on the fact that in order to be able to communicate effectively, which is a big help, you have to learn that skill. That's not something that is, it's not innate. And sometimes you don't necessarily have to have therapy to learn it, but there's definitely different, like you said, different agencies out there, and hopefully we'll get to put some of those agencies on the board. And I just kind of got thrown off by a little environmental factor here, so I'm trying to bring myself back around. So I'm just.
well, you know what though?
So thank you for bearing with me on that. But yeah, I just wanted to get back to talking about the in-home services and things like that. They're also good for the family. It also helps support the parent who's in need and maybe not able to say, I need help, at the time, just, having those services around, social connectedness, things of that nature. Children who witness domestic violence in the home.
Hold on, Regina. I'm sorry, not to cut you off, honey. Hold on, one more thing. I'm sorry. I wanted to throw one more thing out there. As far as the help goes, I'm gonna go ahead and stir the pot, because I like to stir the pot. And you alluded to it. I want to expound on it real quick. Providing a safe environment that does not include violence in any form after a child has witnessed domestic violence is paramount. And I need parents and caregivers to understand. Here goes, I'm stirring the pot. You ready? I need parents and caregivers and family members and friends and whomever to find ways to discipline that do not involve hitting, name-calling, yelling, or any other form of verbally aggressive behavior. How the heck can you expect a child to stop engaging in these socially inappropriate behaviors at home, at school, and in the community if you're reinforcing the very behavior that you want them to break by using corporal punishment? You got to stop. You have to stop. And
I think it's hard for them to do that because it's a different parenting style than something that they're used to, and maybe something that they even believe in. But again, like you say, it goes beyond that.
Right.
You're re-traumatizing the child.
Yep. You screaming, you yelling, you cussing, you snatching them up in the throat, you throwing them down, you threatening to beat them half to death, you threatening to break their arm, their limb, they're punch them in the throat, you threatening to do all these things to them, and then you have the audacity when they get suspended from school for engaging in that behavior. Guess what they do, Regina? They beat them again. Are you freaking kidding me? As a therapist, I anger parents on a regular basis because, little Johnny got suspended from school for flipping a desk, flipping a chair, punching the teacher, slapping the teacher, going hands-on with a peer, the whole 9 yards. And you know how you discipline him? You beat the brakes off of him when he gets home. And you want him to stop hitting. Why? Because here's the thing. This was my thing. I used to, as a kid, my mom was very, very big on corporal punishment. You all have heard me say that repeatedly on shows. It's in my book and everything else. And then I would get put on punishment when I would get suspended in school for fighting. You don't think I'm angry? Who wants to be hit? Did you want to be hit? Do you like being hit? Do you want somebody slapping the taste out your mouth? Do you want somebody screaming and yelling and cursing at you and telling you that you're this, that, and the third? No. But I know that people use corporal punishment across the ethnicities, but I'm going to target people of color right now. It is my personal and professional belief, it is the residual effects of slavery. And if you have to beat someone into submission, if you have to beat someone to get them to supposedly respect you and to behave a certain way, don't get mad or offended when they engage in those behaviors in situations and circumstances that you deem inappropriate. I know the Bible says spare the rod and spoil the child. I don't think that means beat the brakes off of your kid. And because let me go here, because Ephesians also said provoke not your children to wrath. Beating the hell out of your kids will provoke them to wrath. Let me just go ahead and put that out there. So we real talk, right? So if somebody wants to, we take calls. You can shoot me an email if there's people out there that like being beat upon, that like being screamed at, hooped, hollered, cussed, and fussed at. If you like that, you know what? Good for you. Keep doing what you're doing. But I'd suffice it to say that all the people that I know take issue with being treated that way, but that's sure enough how they treat their kids. And then you wonder why your kid at school wilding out. And I'm going to tell you like I tell my parents, you can keep handling him or her the way you handling them, and they're going to keep wilding out and cutting a straight fool, but guess who's going to deal with them in a little bit? 5-0. Guess who's going to deal with them a little bit? But then what? Then when the cops beat the brakes off of them, now folks want to march. Now we're going to march because Black Lives Matter.
Well.
You know.
You know what? I'm gonna say this and then
we can move on. Mm-hmm.
And we can move on. I don't remember. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I don't remember the beatings I feel I should have got.
Well.
I only remember the ones I know for sure I didn't deserve to get.
Yeah. How about that?
Okay. That's just my personal.
Yeah. Well, look. I got ones that, if you're going to use corporal punishment to discipline based on that mindset, I got ones that I should have gotten, but I also got a whole bunch that I shouldn't have gotten. And let's keep it real. It was the ones that I shouldn't have gotten that scarred me for life.
Okay.
It's the ones that I shouldn't have gotten that enraged me and made me a walking volcano because of all of the other traumatic experiences that I was trying to make sense of that were going on in my life. So when you take into consideration that I had experienced all of this other trauma that I couldn't make sense of, and then I was getting beat, how could I be anything other than enraged? How's it possible? How could I be anything other than a walking volcano? And that's exactly what I was. And now we have schools full of children that are walking volcanoes. I was in a meeting yesterday at a school, and I kid you not, the administrators that were in the meeting with me had to step out of my meeting on 5 separate occasions because of various physical altercations that occurred, requiring the children that were fighting each other to have to come in the office past the conference room that we were in. But guess what, Regina? School started at 8:30. My meeting was from 9 to 10. And from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on 5 separate occasions, the administrators that I was meeting with had to pause our meeting to go out and deal with various physical altercations because those kids were beating each other half to death. First thing in the morning. Girl, they came to school mad and ready to fight. Yep. So go ahead. We can move on.
All right. Just some numbers. Got some numbers here.
Got some numbers.
All right. So children who witness domestic violence in the home often believe they are to blame, live in constant state of fear, and are 15 times more likely to be victims of abuse. Close observation during an interaction can alert providers to the need for further investigation and intervention, such as dysfunctions in the physical, behavioral, emotional, and social areas of life, and can aid in early intervention and assistance for child victims. And I believe we talked a lot about some different forms of intervention and things of that nature. We talked about protective factors and things of that nature. Is there anything else you want to kind of add to that list with regard to interventions to counteract the effects of witnessing domestic violence?
I do. I just want to put this other one out there because, interestingly enough, this was part of the meeting that I was having yesterday. School personnel can put referrals in for services for children. So for those, we have a global listening audience. So we may have listeners on tonight that don't have some of those in-school programs, if you will, that we were talking about that we have here in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. But what every school district has the ability to do is that the school counselor if the school has a behavior interventionist, if there's a dean of students, if there's someone at the school, or school resource officer, i.e. the security guard or what have you, they can actually submit paperwork that, the parent would have to agree to sign, but they can do a referral to outside services to get the child support to address these behaviors that you just referenced. So I want our listening audience to know that their school district, regardless of what age, their school district, if you're dealing with smaller children who are in Head Start or Kinder Care or something like that, those organizations also have a resource list, and they can do a referral to those agencies on behalf of the family to get support services in place for the child. Is that what the
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'd like to just piggyback off of that and say your child's teacher can be your best friend.
Yes.
Because I want to say, if it were not for my child's teacher, all of the concerns and all of the ways I was trying to address certain issues early on with my child were kind of being glossed over until child's teacher made the referral.
Yes.
And I want to say, from there, every evaluation, neurological, psychological, psychiatric, you name it, got done.
Yeah.
So, don't discount the effects and the abilities of that network that you have in the school system.
Yeah.
Just want to put that out.
Yeah. So we only have maybe about 15, 20 more minutes. Yeah, girl, it so flies with these robust discussions that we have. I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk about another area that is very, very important to me with regards to my advocacy work, and that's the LGBTQ youth who are exposed to domestic violence. When we talk about major concerns facing LGBTQ youth, we typically discuss topics like bias-based bullying and harassment, or familial rejection and homelessness. And we talk about violence facing the larger LGBTQ community. We typically discuss hate crimes, right? That's usually at the crux. In other words, we talk about the violence facing our community from those outside it, from those who are openly homophobic or transphobic. But what about the violence happening within our community and in our homes with regards to the LGBTQ youth in our homes? As difficult as it may be to admit, LGBTQ people, including LGBTQ youth, can be and are perpetrators of violence as well as its victims. And too often that violence occurs in the context of romantic and or sexual relationships. So when we think about, oftentimes you think about kids being exposed to DV that are in heterosexual homes, but that's not always the case. We're in the 21st century. We've got, members of the LGBTQ community having children of their own, adopting children, but some of these homes are laden with domestic violence too. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, lesbians and gay men experience equal or higher levels of intimate partner violence as heterosexuals, with bisexual women suffering much higher rates of intimate partner violence in comparison to lesbians, gay men, and heterosexual women. So let's talk for a few minutes, a couple of minutes here, about what are the causes or effects of LGBTQ domestic violence, and are there similarities to certain findings among non-LGBTQ youth?
I gotta say, until you brought it up,
Hadn't thought about it, right?
Hadn't really thought about it, but now I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm saying because this is the topic I'm definitely not an expert on for sure, but I can see how where fighting a man fighting a man or a woman fighting a woman
excuse me,
could not necessarily could be misconstrued or
misconstrued,
not placed in the right, not placed in the right avenues of domestic violence. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. It's almost unfair for the heterosexual relationships because they seem to get labeled that more. But now, but when you think about it, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And they too need the same protective factors, same risk factors. People are people, love is love, fight is fight.
Yeah.
And I don't see I don't really see a reason to have to separate it out. If you're in a domestic situation, there's violence going on, whether it be verbal, physical, sexual, and children are in the mix. It should all be treated the same.
Right. I just want to, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I do want to illuminate a couple of things that I believe are causal factors that I think people need to take into consideration. When you consider the hate and the oppression that the LGBTQ community members are subjected to, it definitely creates this perfect storm, if you will, of increasing the likelihood of domestic violence. There's all of these added pressures, particularly in family systems where they are rejected because they're living an alternative lifestyle based on their family's perspective of what their lifestyle should be. So it can increase the likelihood that they are subjected to domestic violence. When you take into consideration, particularly for those individuals that are in the LGBTQ community who perhaps came out in their youth and it was not accepted and considered morally reprehensible and all of those things by their family members, there are a number of LGBTQ youth who went from witnessing domestic violence to being victims of domestic violence because their parents or caregiver tried to beat it out of them. And then they carry that anger, that rage, that brokenness, that woundedness into their intimate relationships. So again, here we have this perpetual intergenerational and multi-generational cycle. I think that another causal factor where this community is concerned is just blatant ignorance. It's hate, it's ignorance, it is a lack of sensitivity to one's difference. We have the whole nation is preaching diversity and inclusion, but what I see so oftentimes is it's diversity and inclusion based on whatever I want to accept. And what I want our global listening audience to understand is that you don't have to agree with someone's choices to treat a person with humanity. And that's something that I believe is a major protective factor where the LGBTQ community is concerned. If you can bring yourself to meet these individuals, whether they be family members or whomever, your child, if you can find it in your heart to meet these children, to meet these individuals that you profess to love and care about, that you gave birth to, if you can find it in your being to treat them in a place and space of common humanity, that is a tremendous protective factor. Because if you, as the parent or caregiver, can be willing to provide this safe and loving space for your child, even though they are a member of the LGBTQ community, you can then minimize, you can then decrease the likelihood that they will themselves become a victim of domestic violence. So I wanted to add that.
Yes, exactly. The same protective factors. Loving, supportive parents. People who talk with their kids, healthy relationships, good communication skills. Bopping them upside the head just doesn't communicate exactly what you're trying to get it to do.
Right.
So, and I'm glad, like I said, I'm really glad you brought the topic of the LGBTQ community up, because I, kind of lump everybody together, and truly there is some marginalization there. So, thank you. Because, like you said, you always hit the tough stuff. So, but as we're getting kind of close, but I just want to ask you if you are aware of any resources that are available to the LGBTQ youth experience domestic violence, who may not be in a geographic area where the resources reference that, that we're talking about, school-based services and things like that.
Yes.
If you know of anything.
Yes. The main one that I want to highlight is the GLBT National Help Center. That number is 1-800-246-PRIDE. That's 1-800-246-7743. Again, GLBT National Help Center. The hotline number is 1-800-246-PRIDE. That's 1-800-246-7743. Or you can also chat online at www.volunteerlogin.org/chat/. Also, the National Sexual Assault Hotline supports LGBTQ people. 1-800-656-HOPE. That's 1-800-656-4673. That is 24/7 support available. Online counseling is available at ohl.ohl.org/online/. I will also post these. I have a couple more. I have three more. Gay Men's Domestic Violence Project Hotline, 1-800-832-1901. Again, that's the Gay Men's Domestic Violence Project Hotline, 1-800-832-1901. We have the Love is Respect Hotline, 1-866-331-99474. That looks crazy. Or you can text Love Is, which is 22522. And then lastly, we have the Anti-Violence Project, who also serves people who are LGBTQ. That hotline number is area code 212-714-1124. And that is a bilingual hotline that is available 24/7. Again, the Anti-Violence Project, 212-714-1124. So, I done broke a sweat, Regina. I did. Girl, this is my life's work. This is my heart and soul. This is the core of my being, and I just want to say I don't know why God picked me, but I'm glad He did, and I'm just so thankful, and I'm so humbled, and I truly count it a tremendous blessing and an honor that God has given me. First and foremost, the anointing, the wisdom, the strength, the courage, and the fire to hit these hard topics week in and week out. And I just want to say this to our listening audience as we prepare to close out. Watching one person who you love and who is supposed to love you violently abuse someone else you love, you depend on, and who loves you is terrifying. It shatters a child's belief that they can be safe in their home or in their own skin. A parent who is being abused is very stressed and is unlikely to be able to function as well as a parent as they otherwise would. Sometimes children will try to defend their victimized parent, which places them at horrible physical and emotional risk, and sometimes they mimic the abusive parent's words and actions, which can cause guilt and habituates them to behaving violently. And this is assuming the abuser isn't doing anything else to directly abuse the child, and that their victim is still functioning as a parent. We've shared a wealth of information tonight. Let's just do a quick recap on 3-4 key points we want our listeners to take away from tonight's discussion.
Okay. Number one.
Mm-hmm.
The most important protective factor is caring, loving relationship with parents and or caregivers.
Mm-hmm. Caring, loving relationships
with parents or caregivers.
Yeah. With parents.
Can I do one more?
Oh, please.
Okay. Shield your child from toxic stress by working to prevent negative experiences. If you are in a bad situation, get out.
Mm-hmm.
Because nothing says it's okay better than if it keeps happening.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do something about your situation. Hit your abuse hotline, hit 911, do whatever it is you got to do to get yourself and get your child out of that negative situation. And then the last thing I want to say is that children learn from their parents' behavior.
Yes.
If you handle times of stress and things of that nature by being positive and confident, your child's going to notice that and learn that. They're a sponge. We said that. Yeah. So if in the thick of things, you can remain confident and you can remain headstrong and clear thinking, that is a good way to build resilience in your child.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love it. The only thing that I'm going to add, and you said it, I'm just going to sort of say it again. I'm going to do like I always.
Dr. Twist.
I'm going to give it to Dr. Twist. I'm getting ready to post the keys for your key ring like I do after every show. We're going to list these resources. There are a wealth of resources available. You just have to be willing to take the first step. The first step is one of the hardest steps to take, but take the first step. There are a wealth of resources with people waiting with an extended hand to help you, to help a loved one, to help a friend, family member, colleague, whomever. Take that first step and actually use the resources that we're sharing with you tonight, and it will make all the difference in your life. And you can email me. You can inbox me on social media. You can call the number. You go to my website, drlaurendpitts.com. Telephone number's there. You can email me, and you can talk with me one-on-one, and we can set up a time to do a free consult. Your information is confidential. The only time I ever violate confidentiality is because I have a duty to warn, a duty to protect, a duty to report. my job is to help you stay safe, and there's a wealth of resources that I have access to, and I want to share them with you. So please don't hesitate to contact me. I want to help. Regina wants to help. We're connected. We're practically freaking joined at the hip anymore. We got a ton of stuff going on together. We want to help you, and we are here to help you and to get you connected to these very, very, very important resources. So I just want to say this. Primary prevention of domestic violence and primary prevention of domestic violence as an adverse childhood experience are both very important. It appears that domestic violence can be reduced in our communities by taking a zero tolerance approach where police, district attorneys, judges, parole, probation, and the domestic violence support community work together to prioritize the maximum enforcement of existing domestic violence laws. This reinforces the point that abusers choose to abuse. If they fear significant consequences, they are less likely to make that choice, particularly where children exposed to domestic violence are concerned. There is much more advocacy work that needs to be done in our homes, schools, communities, and at the legislative level. I discuss the impact of abuse on my life across the life cycles in my autobiography, The Queen Within, Becoming the Woman God Intended. It is a preventative resource. It is a protective resource. You can grab your copy everywhere books are sold, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, Apple iTunes, and my website, drlaurendpitts.com. Regina, I love you, girl.
I love you too.
As always, thank you for being an amazing co-host. Listeners, thank you for tuning in tonight, and don't forget to join us next Wednesday at 9 p.m. as we transition our focus to breast cancer awareness. Again, thank you much for joining us tonight. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.